What if the person who saved your life was someone society had completely forgotten? Picture this. A stormy dawn on a deserted beach. A man in an expensive suit lies unconscious in the sand, waves still lapping at his designer shoes. Standing over him is a teenage girl in battered sneakers, her hands pressed to his chest, counting compressions as she fights to bring him back to life. Have you ever been judged by your appearance before anyone knew your character? Have you ever walked past someone and assumed you knew their entire story? This is Kiera, a girl who society refuses to see, living beneath an abandoned pier with only a stray dog for company. And this is Sebastian Montrose, a billionaire investor whose name appears on skyscrapers across 3 continents. 20 minutes ago, they lived in completely different worlds. 20 minutes from now, one of them would owe their life to the other. But the person you think is the hero might surprise you, because sometimes the most forgotten people have the biggest hearts. Sometimes the smallest act of courage creates the biggest ripples. And sometimes the person who saves you is the one you'd never think to notice. If you believe heroes come in unexpected forms, hit that like button right now, because this story will change how you see everyone around you. For 3 months, Kiera had called the space beneath Pier 47 home. It wasn't much, a concrete shelter that smelled of salt and seaweed, where the sound of wave provided a constant lullaby. But it was dry when it rained, and it was hers. She wasn't alone. Lucky, a golden retriever mixed with kind eyes and a torn ear, had found her during her 2nd week on the streets. Together, they created a routine that kept them both alive. Mornings spent walking the Titterline for anything useful. Afternoons in the public library where Kiera could read and Lucky could rest in the shade outside. Evenings back at their pier where Kiera would share whatever food she'd managed to find. People walked past them every day without seeing them. Joggers focused on their fitness apps. Tourists snapped photos of the ocean view. Business people hurried to meetings that seemed earth-shatteringly important. Kiera had learned to be invisible. It was safer that way. Invisible meant avoiding the wrong kind of attention, the questions she couldn't answer, the system that had already failed her once. Meanwhile, 12 miles away in a penthouse that overlooked the same ocean, Sebastian Montrose prepared for another day of moving millions with phone calls and signatures. His world was private jets, board meetings, and charity galas where people wrote checks to feel better about problems they'd never personally encountered. Sebastian knew the homeless population was growing. He'd seen the statistics in his assistant's briefings about city council meetings. But statistics were numbers on spreadsheets, not faces with stories. Neither Kiera nor Sebastian imagined their worlds would collide on a Tuesday morning, when nature decided to remind them both how small they really were. Comment if you think we notice the people who need help most, because what happened next would prove that sometimes the most important people are the ones we never see coming. The weather forecast had called for scattered thunderstorms. What hit Sebastian's 40-foot yacht was something meteorologists would later classify as a microburst, a violent downdraft that turned calm seas into a washing machine of wind and water in less than 3 minutes. Sebastian had been alone on deck, reviewing contracts while his crew prepared breakfast below, when the first wall of water crashed over the bow. By the time he realized the danger, the yacht was already listing dangerously to starboard. "Mayday, mayday," came the captain's voice over the radio, but the words were swallowed by howling wind and the sound of expensive equipment slamming into bulkheads. The yacht rolled once, twice, then capsized completely. Sebastian found himself underwater, disoriented, his lungs burning as he fought toward what he hoped was the surface. His life jacket kept him afloat, but the current was stronger than his ability to fight it. Hours later, as dawn painted the sky pink and gold, the storm had passed. Sebastian lay unconscious on the beach, his body battered by waves and debris, his breathing shallow but steady. Beside him, his German shepherd, Max, whined and pawed at his unmoving master. 3 miles down the coast, Kiera was beginning her morning routine, walking the Titterline with Lucky at her side. The storm had scattered all kinds of debris across the sand. Pieces of boats, lost fishing gear, and sometimes treasures that the ocean decided to return. That's when she spotted the expensive leather shoe half buried in the sand, and realized this morning would be different from all the others. Lucky saw them first, barking sharply and running towards something Kiera couldn't yet make out in the early morning light. As she followed, her heart sank. A large dog was standing over what looked like a person lying motionless in the wet sand. Kiera had found people on the beach before. Usually they were drunk tourists who'd passed out during late-night parties. But as she got closer, she realized this was different. The man's lips were blue, his skin was cold, and his breathing was barely perceptible. Without hesitation, Kiera dropped to her knees beside him. She'd learned CPR during a brief stay at a youth shelter 2 years ago, knowledge she'd never expected to use, but had never forgotten. "Come on," she whispered, tilting his head back and checking his airway. "Don't you die on me." She began chest compressions, counting aloud while Lucky and the German shepherd watched anxiously. 30 compressions, 2 rescue breaths. 30 compressions, 2 rescue breaths. Her arms burned from the effort, but she didn't stop. 1, 2, 3, 4. She counted, pressing hard against his ribs, trying to restart a heart that had nearly given up. On her third round of compressions, the man suddenly coughed up seawater and gasped for air. His eyes fluttered open, unfocused and confused, trying to make sense of the scene around him. What he saw was impossible to process. His loyal dog Max standing next to a scruffy golden retriever, and a teenage girl with concerned brown eyes, her hand still positioned over his chest, ready to continue CPR if needed. "Can you hear me?" Kiera asked gently. "You're safe now. You're on the beach." Sebastian tried to speak, but could only manage a hoarse whisper. "Max!" The German shepherd immediately moved closer, licking Sebastian's face with relief. "He's fine," Kiera assured him. "He stayed with you the whole time. What's your name?" "Sebastian," he managed. "Sebastian Montrose." Kiera didn't recognize the name. She didn't read financial newspapers or watch business news. To her, he was just a man who'd nearly drowned and needed help. "I'm Kiera. This is Lucky." She gestured to her own four-legged companion. "Can you sit up? We need to get you somewhere warm." As Sebastian struggled to sitting position with Kiera's help, he took in his rescuer properly for the first time. Her clothes were warm but clean, her sneakers held together with duct tape, and her backpack looked like it contained everything she owned. But her eyes held a kindness and competence that commanded respect. Have you ever been surprised by someone's hidden strength? Share below, because what Sebastian was about to learn would challenge everything he thought he knew about heroism. Sebastian could barely walk, so Kiera supported most of his weight as they made their way up the beach. His expensive clothes were ruined. His Rolex had stopped working, and his legs felt like rubber. But he was alive, and he owed that entirely to a girl who had every reason to keep walking but chose to stop instead. "There's an old fishing shack up here," Kiera explained, guiding him toward a weathered building that looked abandoned. "The door doesn't lock, but it's dry and out of wind." Inside, the shack smelled of old rope and fish, but it was warm compared to the beach. Kiera helped Sebastian settle onto a wooden crate, while both dogs curled up nearby, exhausted from their ordeal. "We should call someone," Kiera said. "Do you have family? Friends who are worried about you?" Sebastian nodded slowly, still trying to process what had happened. "My yacht. There were 4 other people on board. I'm sure they're looking for you," Kiera said with quiet confidence. "The Coast Guard probably has boats out already. How did you know to do CPR?" Sebastian asked, studying this remarkable girl who'd saved his life. Youth shelter taught basic first aid. Figured it might come in handy someday. Kiera shrugged, like saving lives was just another Tuesday morning activity. "Where do you live?" Sebastian asked, though he was beginning to suspect he already knew the answer. Kiera hesitated. "Around. Lucky and I, we get by." The silence that followed wasn't uncomfortable. It was the quiet of 2 people from different worlds recognizing each other's humanity. Sebastian had spent years surrounded by people who wanted something from him. Kiera had spent months surrounded by people who wanted nothing to do with her. Yet here they sat, connected by a moment of crisis that had stripped away all the superficial differences. "Why did you stop?" Sebastian asked finally. "Why didn't you just keep walking?" Kiera looked genuinely confused by the question. "You needed help. But you didn't know who I was. For all you knew, I could have been dangerous. You were unconscious and barely breathing. Didn't seem too dangerous to me." Kiera smiled for the first time since finding him. Besides, Max here vouched for you. Dogs are good judges of character. As if on cue, Max lifted his head and thumped his tail against a wooden floor, while Lucky stretched and yawned contentedly. The Coast Guard helicopter found them 2 hours later, guided by the smoke from a signal fire Kiera had built on the beach. Within minutes, the quiet shack was filled with paramedics, Coast Guard officials, and Sebastian's frantic personal assistant who'd been coordinating the search and rescue operation. Mr. Montrose, thank God you're alive, his assistant breathed, nearly in tears. The others were rescued last night, but when you didn't answer your radio. Sebastian submitted to medical checks and official questions, but his attention kept drifting to Kiera, who was quietly gathering her few belongings while Lucky waited patiently by her side. Wait, Sebastian called out as she headed toward the door. Where are you going? You don't need me anymore, Kiera said simply. I'm glad you're okay. That's when the full weight of what had happened hit Sebastian. This girl, this homeless teenager whom society had rendered invisible, had saved his life without expecting anything in return. She was about to walk away and disappear back into the world that ignored her existence. The media is going to want to interview you, Sebastian's assistant said, suddenly realizing the public relations goldmine this story represented. Homeless girl saves billionaire. It'll be front-page news. But Sebastian wasn't thinking about headlines. He was thinking about a girl who performed CPR on a stranger, who'd stayed with him in a fishing shack when she could have left, who'd asked for nothing and expected nothing in return. Kiera, he said, his voice stronger now. What can I do? How can I thank you? You don't need to thank me, she replied. I'm just glad you're okay. But I want to help. Please, let me help. Kiera considered this for a long moment, looking at Sebastian with those steady brown eyes that seemed to see right through him. If you really want to help, she said finally, help others like me. There are a lot of people out there who are invisible until someone needs them to be heroes. 6 months later, the Montrose Foundation announced its largest initiative ever, a comprehensive program providing housing, education, and job training for homeless youth. Sebastian had learned their names, heard their stories, and discovered that heroism comes in many forms. Kiera accepted a scholarship to nursing school, choosing to turn her life-saving instincts into a career. Lucky remained her constant companion, now officially registered as a therapy dog who visits hospitals with her. What would you do if someone society overlooks saved your life? Have you ever discovered that your assumptions about people were completely wrong? Share your thoughts below. Like this video if you believe everyone deserves to be seen and valued. Subscribe for more stories proving that the most important people are often the ones we never notice. Thanks for watching, and remember, heroes don't always wear capes. Sometimes they wear battered sneakers and carry everything they own in a backpack.